He still traces my spine at night. That is the first thing you need to understand about the man I married. He has always been a toucher. Not in the aggressive, greedy way of men who take without asking. He touches like a musician plays an instrument, slow, deliberate, reverent. His fingers know the geography of my back better than I do. They know the exact curve of each vertebra, the small dip at the base of my neck where I hold all my stress, the way my skin rises into goosebumps when he drags his knuckles down my shoulder blade. For 12 years, his hands have been a language I did not need to translate. They have been my lullaby, my welcome home, my I am still here when words fail him. But something has changed. His thumb hesitates now, just a fraction of a second, just a small, almost invisible pause at the curve of my lower back, right above my hip, the place where my body arches inward like a river bending around a stone. He used to trace that curve without thinking. It was automatic, unconscious. The way you breathe or blink or say I love you to someone. You have loved so long that the words have lost their shape, but gained a kind of holy weight. Now his thumb stops there, hovers, as if he is checking a memory against a living body, as if he is comparing two maps and trying to remember which one is home. I noticed it 3 weeks ago, or maybe I noticed it months ago and only 3 weeks ago let myself admit what it meant. He is not touching me. He is comparing me, and I have never felt more alone than in the middle of his hands. The first time I felt the hesitation, I told myself I was imagining it. That is what left us to you. It makes you a professional liar, but only to yourself. You learn to explain away the small signs because the alternative, the full, blinding truth, would require you to leave the only home you have known for over a decade. So I told myself he was tired, overworked, distracted by the promotion he had been chasing for 2 years. I told myself that all marriages have rhythms, that passion ebbs and flows, that a thumb hesitating on a spine was not evidence of betrayal, but merely evidence of time. Time is the great thief of intimacy. It takes the urgency, the novelty, the electric shock of new skin. It replaces them with comfort, with predictability, with the quiet safety of knowing exactly what the other person will order at a restaurant. I thought that was what I was feeling, the slow, natural erosion of a long marriage. But comfort does not hesitate. Safety does not pause. When you are home, truly home, your hand does not stop to ask if you remember the way. It just moves. It knows. The hesitation was not time. The hesitation was another woman's body, another woman's curve, another woman's spine arching under my husband's thumb while he learned a new geography, a new language, a new way to touch someone who was not me. I did not know her name yet. I did not know her face, but I could feel her in the spaces where his fingers used to be certain. She was living in the pause. She was breathing in the hesitation, and I was sleeping next to a man who was practicing her body on mine. I started watching him after that, not in the obvious way, not checking his phone or following his car or interrogating him when he came home late. I watched him in the small moments, the way he looked at his coffee cup before drinking it as if he was somewhere else, the way he laughed at his own thoughts before sharing them as if he was rehearsing a joke he had already told someone else, the way he said work when I asked where he had been, but his mouth curled around the word like it was a lie he had told so many times that it had become comfortable, like an old shoe that no longer pinches. I watched his hands most of all, because his hands had always been the most honest part of him. When his mouth said, "I'm fine," his hands would reach for me. When his eyes looked away, his fingers would find my knee under the dinner table. His hands had never lied to me, until now. Now they reach for me with a new kind of hunger. Not the hunger of desire, the hunger of comparison. He touched me like a man who was trying to decide if he wanted to stay. Every caress was a question. Every stroke of his thumb was a debate. He was not making love to me. He was conducting research, and I was the control group in an experiment where the variable was another woman's skin. The night I finally understood, we were lying in bed after sex, or what passed for sex. It had been good, technically good, physically satisfying, the kind of encounter that would have left me glowing 5 years ago. But something was missing. Something I could not name until he rolled over and reached for his phone. He did it automatically, without thinking. The way he used to reach for me, his fingers found the screen before they found my hand. And in that small, devastating gesture, I saw the entire architecture of our marriage. He had replaced me, not with a person, with a device, with a glowing rectangle that contained her voice, her laughter, her understanding, her patience, her willingness to listen to the dreams he had stopped sharing with me. He scrolled for 5 minutes. I watched the blue light paint his face in cold, unflattering shadows. He smiled twice, not the polite, tired smile he gave me when I asked about his day. A real smile, a private smile, the smile of a man who has forgotten he is being watched. Then he put the phone down, rolled back toward me, and draped his arm over my waist. His thumb found my spine. It traced upward, and then there it was. The hesitation, the pause, the small, almost invisible moment where his thumb stopped at the curve of my lower back and hovered, as if waiting for permission from someone who was not in the room. I closed my eyes. I felt his thumb compare me to her. I felt her ghost slide between us, cold and silent, taking up space in the bed where our intimacy used to live. And I did not say a word. I let him finish tracing my spine. I let him fall asleep with his hand still resting on my hip. I let the ghost stay, because I was not ready to admit that the man in my bed was no longer mine. He was a bridge between two women, and I was the one he crossed to get to her. The confrontation did not happen the way I imagined. There was no screaming, no thrown objects, no tearful confession at 2 a.m. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon, in the middle of a conversation about grocery lists. He said something about needing to pick up milk. I said something about the kids' school play. And then, in the silence between sentences, I heard myself ask, "What is her name?" He froze, not the freeze of confusion, the freeze of a man who has been caught in a lie so large that he forgot to prepare an alibi. His hand, the same hand that had traced my spine for 12 years, the same thumb that had learned to hesitate on another woman's curve stopped mid-reach for the coffee pot. He did not ask what I was talking about. He did not pretend to be confused. He just stood there, frozen, his hand hanging in the air like a question he was afraid to answer. "I don't know what you mean," he said, but his voice cracked on the word no, and I realized that he had been waiting for this moment, not hoping for it, dreading it, but waiting, because liars always know that the truth has a shelf life. You can hide it for months, sometimes years, but eventually the expiration date arrives, and you have to decide whether to come clean or let the rot spread until there's nothing left to save. "Your thumb," I said. "It hesitates now, on my lower back, right above my hip. It never used to do that. You used to trace that curve like you built it yourself. Now you pause, like you are checking to see if I'm still the same, like you are comparing me to someone else. So I will ask you one more time. What is her name?" He sat down, not in the chair across from me, on the floor. He sat on the kitchen floor, his back against the cabinets, his hands hanging between his knees. And he cried. Not the dignified crying of a man who is sad, the ugly crying of a man who has been unmasked. He cried the way our daughter cried when she was 5 and accidentally broke a vase, not because she was sorry, but because she was scared of the consequences. I watched him cry, and I felt nothing. That was the most terrifying part. 12 years of love, 12 years of building a life, 12 years of sleeping next to him and waking up next to him and believing that we would grow old together. And in that moment, I felt nothing. His tears could not reach me. His shame could not touch me, because he had already given his best tears to her. He had already cried on her virtual shoulder, in her late night texts, in the soft, vulnerable space he had built for her inside his phone. There were no tears left for me. Only the leftovers. Only the performance. Only the ghost of a man who still traced my spine but hesitated on the curve because he was remembering someone else. He told me everything after that. Not because he wanted to. Because I sat on the floor across from him and refused to move until he spoke. The silence became a weapon. I wielded it with a precision I did not know I possessed. Her name is Claire, he said, Claire. The name landed in the room like a small, soft animal. Not dramatic. Not ugly. Just ordinary. A name that could belong to anyone. A name that could belong to a woman who had never met me, but had somehow learned the geography of my husband's hands. I never touched her, he said. And there it was. The sentence I had heard in 1,000 stories, 1,000 confessions, 1,000 Reddit threads written by women who had also been betrayed by men who swore their bodies were innocent. I never touched her, he said again, as if repetition would make it true. We just talked for hours. About everything. About my father. About the novel I never wrote. About the way I feel like I am disappearing inside my own life. I listened. I did not interrupt. I let him tell me about Claire. About how they met at a work conference. About how she laughed at his jokes. About how she asked him questions no one had asked him in years, not because she was special, but because she was new. Because she did not know his habits, his failures, his unfinished sentences. Because she could listen without the weight of 10 years of shared history pressing down on every word. She made me feel seen, he said, and that was the knife. Not the name. Not the late night text. Not the hesitation in his thumb. The words, she made me feel seen, because I had been trying to see him for 12 years. I had been looking at him across dinner tables and in dark bedrooms and in hospital waiting rooms and in the unbearable silence after his mother died. I had been seeing him, really seeing him the whole time, but he had stopped letting me. He had closed his eyes to my gaze and opened them to hers. She did not see him better. She saw him newer, and there is a difference. Newness is not depth. Novelty is not intimacy. But try telling that to a man who has confused the thrill of being discovered with the slow, sacred work of being known. I did not leave him that night. I stayed. I stayed because leaving would have required energy I did not have. I stayed because the kids were asleep upstairs and their dreams did not deserve to be shattered by their father's thumb. I stayed because I wanted to see if the hesitation would stop now that the secret was out. It did not. That was the second devastation. The confession did not cure him. The truth did not bring his hands back to me. If anything, the hesitation grew worse, more pronounced, more painful, because now he knew that I knew. And every time he traced my spine, he was aware of being watched. He was aware of his thumb pausing. He was aware that I was lying there, silent, counting the milliseconds of his betrayal. He stopped touching me altogether after 2 weeks. Not because he was angry, because he was ashamed. Because every time he reached for me, he saw Claire's curve superimposed on my skin. He saw the woman he had almost lost everything for, and he could not separate her ghost from my body. I became a monument to his failure, and he could not bear to lay his hands on a monument, so he stopped. The spine that he had traced for 12 years became untouched. The hip that had known the weight of his palm became a no man's land. The bed that had held our passion became a museum of what used to be. We slept on opposite sides. We stopped saying, "I love you," because the words felt like accusations. We became roommates who shared a mortgage and a history and a profound, unspeakable grief. He did not leave me for her, but he stopped coming home while still sleeping in my bed. And I realized in the long, empty nights that the hesitation in his thumb had been a mercy, because at least then he was still touching me. Now he does not touch me at all. Now I lie in the dark, feeling the cold inches between our bodies, and I wonder which is worse, being compared or being forgotten. The ending came on a Sunday. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just a quiet, ordinary Sunday, the kind where you do laundry and make pancakes and pretend that everything is fine. He was in the kitchen. I was in the bedroom, folding his shirts. His phone was on the nightstand. It buzzed. I did not look. I had stopped looking months ago. Looking had only brought me pain. But then it buzzed again. And again. 3 quick buzzes in a row, the kind that means someone is saying something urgent, something excited, something they cannot wait to share. I picked up the phone. I did not plan to. My hand moved before my mind could stop it. The screen was already lit. The message was already there. "I miss you too," she had written. "Last night was perfect. I wish you were still here." I read the words 3 times. Then I put the phone down. I finished folding his shirts. I placed them neatly in his drawer, the way he liked them, sorted by color and occasion. I walked to the kitchen. He was flipping pancakes. He smiled at me, the tired, guilty smile of a man who thought he had gotten away with something. "Hungry?" he asked. I looked at his hands, the hands that had traced my spine for 12 years. The hands that had learned to hesitate on another woman's curve. The hands that had touched her. Because now I knew. Last night was not a text. Last night was skin. He had finally touched her. After months of saying I never touched her, he had crossed the line he had been drawing closer to with every hesitation, every pause, every comparison. He had taken the ghost and made her flesh. And I was standing in his kitchen, holding a plate of pancakes he had made for me, wearing the wedding ring he had put on my finger 12 years ago, and I was nothing. Less than nothing. I was the woman he came home to, and she was the woman he stayed for. I did not scream. I did not cry. I set the plate on the counter. I took off my ring. I placed it next to the syrup. And I said, "Claire says she misses you too. She says last night was perfect. She wishes you were still there." His face went white. Not pale. White. The color of sheets after a long illness. The color of a man who has just realized that he has been living 2 lives, and both of them just collapsed into the same room. He opened his mouth. No sound came out. I did not wait for sound. I walked to the bedroom. I packed a bag. Not for the kids, they were at their grandmother's. A bag for me. Clothes, charger, passport. The things you take when you are not sure where you are going, but you cannot stay. He followed me. He stood in the doorway of our bedroom, the same bedroom where he had traced my spine 10,000 times, where he had hesitated, where he had compared me to a woman he had not yet touched. "Please," he said, "please don't go." I looked at him, really looked at him, and I saw a man who was not evil, not cruel, just weak, just lonely, just desperate to feel something new because the old things had stopped working. He did not want Claire. He did not want me. He wanted the feeling of being wanted. And he had burned down our marriage to chase a feeling that would fade the moment she learned his bad habits, his unfinished sentences, The way he left the toilet seat up and forgot birthdays and stopped tracing spines once the novelty wore off. "You did not lose me to her," I said. "You lost me to yourself, to the version of you that confused newness with depth, to the man who thought a hesitation was not a betrayal." I walked past him. I did not look back. I walked out the front door into the cold morning air, and I did not look back. It has been 6 months. I live in a small apartment now. The bed is smaller. The sheets are cheaper, but no one hesitates when they touch me. No one compares me to a ghost. I sleep in the middle of the bed because there is no one to share it with, and I have learned that being alone is less lonely than being compared. He still calls sometimes. He leaves voicemails. He says he made a mistake. He says he misses tracing my spine. He says he would give anything to go back to the night before his thumb learned to hesitate. I do not answer. I listen to his voice and I feel nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not even the ghost of love. Just the quiet, hollow certainty that some hesitations cannot be undone. Some curves cannot be unlearned. Some hands belong to a past that no longer exists. He still traces my spine at night. I know this because he told me. He said he lies in bed and imagines it. He said he closes his eyes and tries to remember the exact curve of my lower back, the dip above my hip, the way my skin used to rise under his fingers. He said he hesitates now, even in his imagination, because he cannot remember which body he is tracing anymore, mine or hers. And that, I think, is the ending he deserves. Not to be alone, but to be haunted. To reach for a woman in the dark and feel nothing but the pause, the hesitation, the unbearable weight of having compared two loves and lost them both. I am not his anymore. I am not hers either. I am just a woman who learned that a hesitating thumb is not a small thing. It is the beginning of every goodbye. And I said goodbye the first time his hand paused on my spine. It just took me 6 months to walk out the door.